The ABS module on my R1150RS has stopped working for the rear brake. With the help of YouTubers like Wheel Stories, I rerouted the brake lines for conventional braking. Obviously, if you decide to do this, it's at your own risk. As per instructions, I know I want to use the electronic portion of the module to keep the taillight functions. With my 2004 RS, the ABS unit came out with very little fuss, although I see that other models require more jostling. The type of screw head holding on the electronics pod seems to vary within BMW production also. Mine was attached with a type of security drive called a tri-wing Torus. At Harbor Freight, I found a set of security drivers that contained the one I needed. The screws on the electronic unit had some type of Loctite on them, but this let go with a little torque. I was lucky in that I was able to salvage the unit's brake lines without cutting them up. And in an approach that's a little different from the videos I watched, I'm going to leave the original parts as intact as possible. Instead of cutting any wires, I found that it was possible to disconnect just by pulling connectors. My thought is that if anyone wants to resurrect this unit in the future, I'll be saving them some work. This also saves the trouble of having to seal off the wires to prevent contacts. I just tucked the ribbon cables back into the unit and bundled up the connections that were attached to the electronics pod. I was prepared to use liquid sealant, but the formed rubber seal looked good to go again. I just reattached the pod to the unit. I was really happy this worked out because I wasn't looking forward to fabricating a backplate for the electronics, and I didn't want to spend $50 to have a kit part sent from the UK. Other YouTubers seem to want to get this part off the bike forever, but I didn't see the point of that, since it would just end up stored in a box taking up space in my garage. It seemed a better idea just to keep it with the bike. I hook up the electrics temporarily just to test the brake-like function, which thankfully is working, front and rear. But I'll want the module out again to seal up the brake line ports. I considered a lot of options, but eventually settled on some hard rubber plugs from the hardware store. These are just a little too fat, so I used a sharp chisel to give them a taper. Fortunately, I bought extras because I messed up a few getting the shape I wanted. I sort of push-screwed these in where the fluid lines had been, and I discovered that the original retaining clips helped hold them in. Just for insurance, I enclosed each connection with a short length of road bicycle tube, which I then folded over and zip tied. With my model, the unit went back in easily. I routed the breather hose back in its original position, so it stays with the bike too. I plugged the electricals back in and sealed up the loose sensor wires using my bicycle tube trick. As promised by my YouTube guides, pulling one element in the fuse box got rid of an errant relay noise. And for now, a strip of duct tape will cover up a cockpit warning light that's upset about the missing ABS. I hope that was helpful to someone. Remember, I'm not a professional. If someone thinks I've made a terrible mistake, they are free to say so in the comments.